Welcome back to TECHMIMIC, where you can simply view, imitate, replicate, and get on with your day. In this video, we are going to install and configure Hyprland to get it up and running on FreeBSD. This has been a popular video request in the comments, no doubt after having seen many beautiful examples of desktop environments with Hyprland on Linux. Hyprland is a dynamic tiling window manager offering smooth animations, rounded corners, and advanced visual effects. It combines the roles of a window manager and compositor, providing a highly customizable and visually appealing desktop experience. Simply put, Wayland is the protocol and defines the communication standard, where Hyprland is a compositor built on top of Wayland to provide the graphical user interface. The aim of this video is to just get Hyprland installed, configured, and then running. This is not an in-depth tutorial on Hyprland, at least not yet, but it should function as a starting point for future videos about how to configure it to your specific needs. That's, by the way, the fun phase that comes after this video, to make Hyprland really your own with its extreme level of customization available to you. Some stunningly good-looking customizations are showcased in the Hyprland Hall of Fame through so-called RISE contests. In the context of desktop customization, RISE refers to the practice of tweaking and theming a desktop environment to make it look visually appealing. It's especially popular in the Linux and Unix-like communities like FreeBSD, in particularly among users of lightweight environments. We will have to manage expectations somewhat, because at this point in the Hyperland on FreeBSD game, I can already tell you that, unfortunately, it is way easier to get results like this on any well-known Linux distribution, as we will see later. For FreeBSD, you will have to do a lot more yourself. If this is not what you are after, have a pleasant day and thanks for watching. For the brave of heart that are still here after this introduction, let's give it a go. This is a freshly installed system with FreeBSD 14.2, so no Xorg, Xwindows, Wayland, Wayfire or desktop managers, just fresh out of the box. If you are in need of a step-by-step guide how to install FreeBSD from scratch or various other topics, there are links in the description of this video for your convenience. You might have noticed that I'm currently logged on as the root user. There is also a regular user account that we will use to work with Hyperland later on. Sudo functionality is also enabled. This system is using integrated Intel graphics, but again, there's a link below how to configure NVIDIA graphics in general. A dedicated video for the combo FreeBSD plus Hyperland plus NVIDIA can again follow at a later time when this is of interest. As always, the content here is driven by your interaction, which is of course very much appreciated, so thank you for that. As mentioned before, Hyprland is a tiling window manager combining the roles of a window manager and a compositor. Another well-known compositor is Wayfire, and a link to the relevant video is linked below. Before we proceed, it is always a good idea to make sure that the system is fully updated. Update the local package repository catalog with the command pkg update and upgrade any packages pkg upgrade. Make sure that the regular user account you will use for day-to-day operations, in this case the username is TECHMIMIC, is added to the video group with the command pw groupmod video-m and then the name of your user. You can check group membership with the groups command. The wheel group is already there in relation to working with sudo commands. It's now time to install the Hyprland packets from the FreeBSD repository. Type the command pkg install hyperland and take note that Hyperland is spelled without the E. The required space is reported, type Y for yes to accept, and then enter to start the installation. Once finished installing, a list is displayed with additional packages recommended for new users, because one can always remove things later, and at this point let's not run into missing dependencies, install all of them with a single command. pkg install and then the name of every individual packet. It is to be expected that Hyperland should be run under a normal user account and not as the root user, and Hyperland is actively checking for this. Start Hyperland with the command hyprland, again without the E. And it is reported that Hyperland was launched with superuser privileges and that this check is currently active. Given the actual name of the flag, to indeed omit it, I would say this is a tongue-in-cheek indication that we should not even be thinking of doing that. So let's move on and switch to the regular user account and try to start Hyperland from there. And because it would not be fun otherwise, we run into the first issue, which can be easily resolved by starting Hyperland through seed-d that was installed on your system during the installation of the Hyperland package. In a nutshell, the seed-d launcher allows unprivileged Wayland compositors like Hyperland to access graphics, input devices, and the ability to handle session management without needing the compositor to run as root. To do this, type seed-d-launch Hyperland. And there is a first glimpse of Hyperland. If at this point it fails to launch, you can try to have a look at the troubleshooting chapter. The main suspect could be the fact that no DRM device is found. DRM is the Direct Rendering Manager to manage your graphics card. And in this case, as mentioned, I'm using Intel Integrated Graphics. If you are using an Intel graphics card, there is a link in the video description how to configure this step by step. But the first glimpse is not looking as expected. What you can do, however, is check if your mouse pointer is moving. And the top of the screen contains what appears to be garbled characters. You can exit Hyperland at any time by pressing Super key and M. On many keyboards, this will be the key with the Microsoft Windows logo on it. As almost anything in FreeBSD and Hyperland, it can be reconfigured to your liking. While still being logged on as the regular user, install the package named Kitty by using sudo, or if you don't want to do this, just switch to the root user or open a second virtual terminal. Sudo pkg install Kitty. Kitty is the terminal that Hyperland wants to use out of the box, which was missing on the system. Start Hyperland again. And this time the text is actually readable. The first warning about the fact that you are using an automatically generated configuration file we will deal with later. But we have just learned another Hyperland keyboard shortcut, Super key plus Q, and that will open a terminal. Before trying this, you will notice that the background and banner at the bottom, we are the children of the dark, will be randomly generated, and as such, chances are that your Hyperland is looking a bit different at this point. Now try the Super key and Q, and this will open a terminal. And because Hyperland is a tiling window manager, it doesn't matter how often you do this, because the window placement will be taken care of automatically. Even if you are just a pure terminal user and nothing else, this still can be very convenient. Now let's deal with that warning. In the user's home directory, there is a hidden directory named .config. In there is the subdirectory hyper, hypr, which is the location of the main Hyperland config file, hyprland.conf, and you will use this file a lot. Let's open it for editing with the easy editor, ee hyprland.conf. It's clearly indicated that you can remove this line to remove the warning. So let's do so. And save the file. In this video, I exit and save the editor all the time, but there's no need to do this. You can also just save the changes and stay in the editor. And with that, the warning is gone. It is very nice to see that most configuration changes will be immediately reflected without the need to reboot or reload anything. Because Hyperland is not a complete desktop environment like GNOME, Cinnamon, KDE Plasma or XFCE, don't assume anything is installed. You have to do all of this yourself, and that's extremely powerful at the same time. An editor that comes to mind is Mousepad, but the many editors can be found in the Hyprland Wiki, which has a dedicated chapter near the end of the video. Let's install Mousepad to also have a graphical text editor on the system if that's your preference. Just take your time and study the various available options. Everything has descriptive labels and references to the Hyprland Wiki. Let me show you the look and feel section where you can, for example, change the thickness and the rounding of the borders. Save, and the changes are immediately in place. I will undo them for now. Let's have another look in the Easy editor. And you will notice that there are relevant Hyperland Wiki page references throughout the file. If you think that this is easier, you don't need one large config file, because you can split the configuration into multiple files. Another important one is the placement, layout and resolution of your monitor. All the details will be in the wiki page. The default line is monitor equals, preferred, auto, auto. And in my case this works because I have one screen connected via HDMI in the resolution of 1920 by 1080. Nothing special, but let's say that you want to change this to another resolution. The command hyperctl monitors is going to list all of the attached monitors it finds and their specs. I can add the all keyword, but the output will be the same for me. My panel is connected through HDMI. This will read DP for DisplayPort, if that's the case, with 1920 by 1080 at a 60 Hz refresh rate. The list of available modes can also come in handy. You can simply add a new monitor line in the format connection, resolution with or without the refresh rate, position, pixels from the top left corner, and the scaling. In my case, nothing changes because I am switching to the same settings that are already in place, but you can see how easy this is. Check the wiki if you have multiple screens and physical placements of them to configure orientations, resolutions, etc. and so forth. Let's move on. The section My Programs is where you can define variables. Here, the file manager is configured as Dolphin, known from, amongst others, KDE Plasma. Again, check the wiki for alternatives. But I'm going for Nemo today. The section AutoStart we will get back to later. Skip environment variables. Look and feel we have already discussed. Skip input. And we end up at key bindings. Time to learn a bit more keyboard shortcuts, because many things can be done without a mouse in a tiling window manager, and that's part of the appeal. This is also where you can configure the superkey. Let's test superkey plus V, labeled as toggle floating, and this will unlock the tiles from its virtual grid to float freely. Press again to snap them back into place. Superkey plus J to toggle the split between vertical and horizontal. And use the superkey in a combination with the cursor keys to shift focus between the open tiles. And then of course there are multiple workspaces or virtual desktops. Switch to the second workspace with superkey 2 or 3 or 4 and so forth. And open the terminal there too. Back to workspace 1 with superkey plus 1. You can also move the currently active window, so the one with the focus, to another workspace. With superkey shift and then the number of the workspace you want to move it to. Now workspace 2 has 2 tiles and workspace 1 just the one left. You can also switch between all workspaces by holding down the superkey and using your mouse's scroll wheel. Now we are near the end of the config file. And let's leave the final section Windows and Workspaces for the moment. Go back to the key binding section, where superkey plus E is configured to execute the command in the variable $FileManager that we have changed from Dolphin to Nemo before. However, superkey plus E is doing nothing at all because Nemo is not installed yet. So let's install it. Test it manually, and that works. Make sure that you have saved the configuration changes made earlier. Now try superkey plus E, and that works without problems. What else can we do? Of course we need a browser. Let me install Firefox for this. Start it manually, and quickly go through all of the initial dialog boxes. Now that we have Firefox, let's assign a keyboard shortcut to it, superkey plus F. Find the key binding section and add a new line. Bind equals $main mod with capital M, comma, capital F, comma, exec, comma, Firefox. We don't use a variable this time, just the program executable will do. Save and exit the editor. And there it is. You can start a browser with superkey plus F. And of course you can move it to its own workspace. And finally, I would like to start the terminal and Firefox when Hyprland starts. To do this, find the auto start section. Uncomment the exec-once terminal line to auto start the terminal. And add the line exec-once equals Firefox. You can combine lines if you want to, of course. But now let me make a typo on purpose. Exec-1 instead of exec-once. And exit and save. And instantly there is a top red banner informing us about the typo and then the line number. On line 48 there is a configuration option that does not exist. Very impressive. Now go back in and fix the typo. Exit and save. Superkey plus M to quit Hyperland. And start again. And boom. Let's throw a file manager in there for good measure. For the older viewers, for some reason, this just reminds me of starting a graphical interface on an MS-DOS machine. It loads almost instantly and everything runs smooth and fast. If you would like a taskbar, waybar might be a good option. Install it with sudo pkg install waybar. But when you start this manually, there is the error, cannot auto-launch dbus with X11 display. Not to worry, simply add dbus-launch, dbus-launch waybar. Wait a few seconds, and there it is. To also automatically start this, like before with Firefox, go back into the Hyperland config. And add another exec-once line. Save and exit the editor. And then exit and start Hyperland again to test your work. And there is the waybar taskbar. This time we get a different background with a different slogan. Regarding the look and feel of waybar, and at the risk of repeating myself, this is just a starting point out of the box. You can configure everything you see, including the location of the waybar through the config file. By default, this is located in user, local etc xdg waybar, and there is the file config.jsonc. I've noticed that on FreeBSD I had to reconfigure the shutdown command. If you would like Hyprland to automatically start after the user logs into the terminal, open the user's shell startup script, which is the hidden file .pro file in the user's home directory. And then simply add the command to start Hyprland like we did before. Now log out and back in. And Hyprland will start automatically. You've seen earlier that when Hyprland is running and then you made an error in the main configuration file, this is automatically detected and a warning message was displayed. When Hyprland is not running, there is similar functionality. Let's add an invalid syntax to the configuration file first. Running the Hyprland command with the -help option shows you the available options or arguments. And an interesting one is -config, where you can specify a different configuration file altogether, handy when you are playing around with various settings. What we need now is -verify -config. And the config parsing result reads config error in file at line 19, invalid config file, just like we saw earlier. The -version option can also come in handy to find the exact details of your Hyprland version and its components. And finally, -system info shows the output of a collection from various places. Now let's remove the invalid line and verify it again. The config parsing result is now config OK. Let's assume that when you try starting Hyprland, it doesn't and you run into an error like this. The hey you, yes you bit is hard to miss, informing you of the fact that the log file is disabled, but also further logging to standard output, which is actually the very screen you are looking at the moment. And when after studying everything on screen, you are still in need of more details, this is how to place Hyprland in debug mode. Open the config file and add debug and add the lines that are on screen now. Also in the video description in case you would like to copy-paste. Exit and save. And try to start Hyprland again. And this time there is more information where it is indicated that the Wayland backend cannot start due to issues with the GPU. Once the issue is fixed, simply turn debugging off again by commenting out or removing the debug lines in the config file. Hyprland's wiki page can be found at wiki.hyprland.org. Links to sections of the wiki are constantly mentioned in the main configuration file and in the output of the various logs and startup options too. The landing page is speaking to Xorg users and mentions that Wayland compositors should not be confused with Xorg window managers, just so you know. The installation page is quick to point out that Hyprland is not meant for beginners with an exclamation mark, and that you are expected to read this wiki and have an understanding of Linux inner workings and are somewhat self-sufficient. And indeed, this is not like turning on your latest Windows PC purchase. Then under the list of packages, the usual suspects including FreeBSD. But clicking on any of the links will just bring you to the Freshports website for more information about each package. The master tutorial could also be worth checking out. Very interesting are the pre-configured setups, where it is claimed that you can skip days of tinkering with Hyprland and can start with a desktop environment-like setting. Let me open the GitHub pages for ML4W, and this other one I don't know how to pronounce, but I like it all the same because of the Commodore PET, original Game Boy, and the white Commodore 64 in the background. As mentioned at the start of this video, unfortunately, getting Hyperland to look like this is not as straightforward on FreeBSD. This one is mentioning that the installation should work on all Arch and Fedora-based Linux distros. You're out of luck with Debian, so also Ubuntu on this one. The other one lists all the automated Hyperland scripts available. A longer list, but again, no FreeBSD. The variables section is where you would go to play around with your configuration file more. For example, to configure the cursor amongst others. And monitors we have seen before. The Hyper ecosystem and useful utilities pages are worth getting your cup of coffee out for and to take your time with it. And lastly, let me point out the dedicated Hyprland plugin website. Just select the topic or component you are interested in and take it from there. Now, if you want to end up with eye candy like shown at the start of the video, you are in for an adventure, and hopefully this video was able to serve as a starting point. Things like automatic start when you boot up the system and a login screen for Hyperland can all be configured from here. If there is a particular topic for which you would like to see a follow-up video, please leave a comment. That's it. Hope it helped, and if it did, please like the video and keep it up. Until next time, bye!